right, everybody. Welcome to the show. Where are we this week? We're
on Lake Graham.
We're on Lake Graham. I'm looking at a beautiful lake right there. You're looking at a wall, but yeah. I like it. This is a concessionaire at Lake Graham. Lake Graham is over in Jackson, Tennessee. We're going to talk about Lake Graham a little today, a lot in a future show. What we've got today is Jason Harmon, of course, right here.
Good to be here, Doug.
I'm Doug Markham. This is Tennessee Wildcast, TWRA's podcast. Trying to make it grow. Won't you tell your friends about it? Right here with us is Tim Broadbent. Tim's been with the agency for as long as I have. For a while yet, but Tim's done a great job through the years. He's was a reservoir biologist, still a biologist, but now you're the manager for over here, which means you're over all of your whole kingdom now is all of Region 1, right?
Yes.
The western portion of the state.
Yeah, streams, reservoirs, lakes, hatcheries, everything you have to do with fish.
All right. Well, we're going to talk a lot to Tim today about that. We drove to Jackson to be here and set up right here. We appreciate the concession manager for letting us set up right here. We're going to do a couple shows. We're going to do one today about the big waters over in West Tennessee, about some of the issues that Tim is facing right now over there. Some of you crappie fishermen will want to hear it because we're going to talk about some issues on that and some aging carp issues and a bunch of stuff. We don't have a lot of current events today. Jason, unless you got an item or two you want to throw out there?
No, just continue to being safe on the water. It's boating season right now. Wear those life jackets.
4th of July coming up. Probably the biggest day of the year is going to be 4th of July. And we've had a pretty good year so far. We've had a few accidents. The ones that I can remember, the 4 or 5, there was no life jackets being worn in any of the incident, and all of those folks would be alive if there had been. So wear that life jacket. Realize there's going to be a lot of folks out on July 4th who don't know anything about a boat, and they might have just went and bought it the other day. So understand that might happen, and just be patient, okay, and make sure you have somebody to watch out for you while you're out there. If they're fishermen, I like to get up if I'm going on a holiday and get on the water, and I'm at the house by 10:30.
Get out there before it gets hot,
Before it gets hot and before it gets crazy. So just be safe out there. We want you to have a good time and enjoy the water. It's great. We live in a great state for boating, for fishing, and you might as well have a good time out there. It's vacation time of year.
Yep.
So, all right.
You might have a lot of people renting boats too, renting pontoons on different lakes. So people are not as experienced maybe as they should be.
It does. I mean, you get experience by going, right? But sometimes
right.
They start on some of the busiest days of the year. they start learning. Just you hunters out there, just want to remind you, we got all our hunting seasons listed out on the website right now at tnwildlife.org. You might be watching our show through there, but if you want to just see a one-page summary of the seasons, it's out there on the slider that goes across the website, across the top of it, along with some really good videos and some other information that will make you more knowledgeable.
Well, and the quota draw.
Quota draw.
Get your quota applications in. Yeah, get them in.
Deer hunting and even elk hunting. There's 11 permits available this year. You might be lucky. I think one of them's going to be auctioned off, and one of them's for youth.
Yeah.
So that leaves about 9 of them out there.
A lot more opportunity for those elk hunters.
It is. Okay.
It's pretty crazy.
All right. Let's get with Tim. Tim, we appreciate you being with us today.
My pleasure.
Tim's been on with me back in my radio days a time or two and always did a great job, Tim. But you have a hard job. You have a job and have for a long time. You started in the late 80s for TWRA.
Yes.
And you started on the water. Going to end your career more or less on the water, right?
I hope so.
You hope so. All right. Well, Tim was how long were you just the reservoir biologist?
Well, since 95, when John Condor retired, I became the full-time reservoir biologist on Kentucky, Barkley, Pickwick. And those are reservoirs, of course, and there's Reelfoot Lake, which is a natural lake.
Okay. What does it mean to be a reservoir biologist?
Basically, it means you collect data. You collect data and then you determine what management strategy will best benefit the fishery. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what we do. Okay. And do you have a crew that goes out with you? You have technicians? Absolutely. I've got a crew of 24 people now. We got some of them split over at hatcheries and small lakes, or with state lakes like Lake Graham. And we also got 11 guys who do reservoir stuff. We got 3 creel clerks, actually 2 creel clerks on Tennessee River, and then 1 at Reelfoot Lake. And then you have technicians, and I have a manager 2, a biologist 2, who help me. We have the lake divided into sections, and they're responsible for that section and collect data. I have a fantastic crew, very dependable, very professional. They care about their job, and they enjoy what they do.
All right, and what is their job, Tim? What is your job? What was your job? Now you're the manager for, which means, as you said, you've got a lot more responsibility even than what you had before. But what do? They electrofish, they net. What is it that
we do? We do every possible collecting technique that we can. We collect water quality parameters on our reservoirs in Reelfoot Lake. We do aquatic vegetation surveys in addition to the electrofishing, the trap netting, and we also just kind of get an idea of what type of habitats we have on the reservoir and how it's declining or increasing, and we deal with water levels quite a bit.
There's you have a lot of big water over here, but when you think of West Tennessee, you don't think it being as water rich as you do East Tennessee. I mean, where they have all those TVA dams and reservoirs, but you got a lot of water. You have a lot of the Tennessee River here. Is that correct?
Right. We have 146 to 147,000 acres of water,
That's a lot of
reservoir water. Yeah, it's ranked second, or I think it's second in the state, behind Region 4, of course. But we have the lake in Tennessee, which is Kentucky
You
Lake.
have the lake, one of the lakes in the United States
Yes,
of America.
it's one of the best. Historically, it's been one of the best crappie fisheries in the southeast.
Okay, all right, and is the river it's a river, but it's impounded. It's Tennessee River. Does that? I want to get in detail a lot about Kentucky Lake, but is the river system like that? Does it help make for a better fishery than just maybe a smaller river that's impounded?
I wouldn't say it makes for a better fishery. You have what you have to worry about is how you collect data and what your management's going to be on a river versus the impounded part. Kentucky Lake becomes more lake-like, I would say, around Interstate 40. You get more of the wide area spread out. Now, south of that, it's more riverine, and the fishery changes in the lake-like area. North of Interstate 40, probably more crappie, bass, and bluegill and red ear. South of there is your better catfish fisheries, although there are the other species also.
As Jason and I we came from Nashville west over here to Jackson, and we crossed over the river, of course, and we both looked down there and thought, I wonder how many fish are down there. And it is riverine right there. Can you catch fish in that?
Sure. Yeah, there are several areas. There's Birdsong and Eagle, Cub Creek, Tom's Creek, Beach River, all those are good.
What about
fisheries.
just the big riverine part of it? Not the creeks coming off of it. Do people ever fish those big bodies?
Yeah,
of
they
water?
fish for catfish quite a bit in the main river.
I expect there's some big catfish in
Yes.
there. All right. So you got a lot more water than what I was thinking. 140-something thousand acres. That's a whole lot of water.
Yes. And doesn't count the Mississippi River.
Oh yeah.
So I don't know how many acres of water we have on the Mississippi River.
What do we do on the Mississippi when we work there?
Right now, we're looking at Asian carp populations and sturgeon and paddlefish at times. It's such a big water, and it's multi-jurisdictional. That means you have Arkansas, Missouri, Mississippi, Kentucky, all involved in the management of the Mississippi River. And it's tough to do a management strategy, which would be a size limit, creel limits, or monitor commercial fisheries on those waters because there's so many states involved. We're trying to make those regulations more uniform, and we're making progress. It's a difficult thing to do.
Is the Mississippi River a great big highway for Asian carp or for any invasive species, period?
Yes, it's prime. That's where all our Asian carp in Kentucky Reservoir are probably coming from the Mississippi River, migrating up the Ohio, from the Ohio into the Tennessee and Cumberland rivers and through the locks into the river, or into the lake.
What is it? We've talked about Asian carp quite a bit on here, but you are really in the heart of it over here in West Tennessee with the Mississippi River and the Tennessee River. Where do you rank it on the scale of your concerns through the years?
Number one.
Number one, and why is that?
It'll be number one over the next, probably at least till I retire for sure, and probably beyond that. Asian carp are very competitive for plankton populations. They compete with our younger year fish for plankton, and if they become too dense, they can cause declines in plankton, and that reduces food availability for your younger year bass, crappie, sunfish, whatever, and even our shad. So it's something, we're not at that point where they're impacting those populations yet, those zooplankton populations, but unfortunately we have a lot of 10-inch fish in the reservoir this year.
A lot of 10-inch Asian carp.
Yes, a lot of 10-inch Asian carp there apparently.
What does that tell you?
Doesn't tell us a lot yet. We're doing larval light traps at night, trying to determine if those fish reproduced in the lake or if they're migrating through the locks from the.
And you're hoping they're migrating, right?
Hopefully they're migrating. Yes.
Okay, I look at that big river out there that we crossed over, and I think it would take a whole lot of fish to interfere with the plankton there, but they produce incredible amounts of fish.
Incredible. They have very little natural predators, although large bass do eat Asian carp. We've seen that this year in our shocking samples where. We collected several big bass that had Asian carp in their gut. So,
okay, that's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
So
great
get
thing.
Get you a lure that imitates an Asian carp.
Yeah, a shad, or
shad,
basically, yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, you see that being here for a long time, and
yes.
I know there's. And just want to spend because we've talked about it so much. Just a brief minute or two on that. You have we're trying to create an industry here in Tennessee for folks to sell Asian carp on a market, on a Chinese or an Asian market. Do you think that will help down the road?
I think if we can get the commercial fishermen involved more than they are now. Right now they're not paying a lot for Asian carp, and they can't afford the gear they tear up and the gas prices to go out. Like 7 or 8 cents a pound just isn't enough money for Asian carp to be actually targeted. Now, if we can get some kind of incentive to increase that price, then I think more commercial fishermen will come involved.
So that's the issue.
That's the issue.
Try to find a market overseas and that they'll really buy this stuff.
Yeah, the Illinois River was so severely impacted by Asian carp. They've actually made an impact on the Illinois River with commercial fishing. So that's a bright spot, hopefully. And we're looking at other things too.
Okay. Do they taste good?
They're delicious.
Are they?
The problem is you can't get a lot of meat out of one of them. They have so many bones.
As big as they are, though.
As big as they are, yeah.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about crappie on Kentucky Lake. A lot of folks have some concern about crappie fishing there. Kentucky Lake is known across this country, maybe worldwide, for the fishing that it's had forever. My dad took me there when I was a kid out of birdsong, and that story's repeated tens of thousands of times from people that go to Kentucky Lake. That's been your baby for a long time. What's the state of Kentucky Lake, and more specifically, what's the state right now with crappie?
Right now, crappie fishing is getting better. We went through from 2011, 12, and 13. We had very low year class success. That means very few small fish survived to age 1. That impacted your adult fish population, obviously. So crappie fishing for the last 3 years has been down. It was not as good as it should have been this spring because of weather conditions. We had terrible weather conditions as far as fishing goes this spring. We had water temperatures in the upper 50s through end of April. Then all of a sudden it went to 71 degrees in no time, fell back out again. So the success was not as good. They started catching more crappie in May this year, and the fish they were catching were quality fish, 12 inches and bigger, 11, 12 inches and bigger. So they didn't have the success that I wish they'd had this fall or this spring because of the weather conditions. The fish were there. We went out and did some samples. We collected over 200 crappie fairly easily. They just weren't biting. There's a lot of prey fish in the population.
The fishermen, they tend to have watched it for years and years and years. When you go through a few bad years on a very popular fish like crappie, they get nervous and they think something's going on. You've been doing it for 3 decades. You're pretty sure there's nothing going on out of that. It's just not, other than a couple of years longer, usually on a bad reproduction year.
See, we went through this in the 80s. The late 1980s had the same type of thing. It's actually worse. The actual catch rates for crappie were actually worse in the late 1980s. We've done it again in the mid 90s, and again in early 2000s. We had some year class failures, which impacted catch rates of crappie by anglers. So it's not new. It's nothing new. But I think the thing that scares anglers more than anything, they're afraid the Asian carp are impacting crappie.
I see.
They are not at this point.
And how do you know that?
Well, there's the density of the population is just not enough to cause problems with reproduction or food availability for young crappie right now.
I told you during before we started the show, I have a friend who thinks cormorants are hurting them.
Yeah. Well, like I told you, if they don't hurt them at Reelfoot, they're not going to hurt them anywhere else. No.
All right. Well, sometimes I think as fishermen, me included, when we're not having a good year, we got to blame it on somebody besides us. So, all right. So Kentucky Lake's going to be okay. You said it had the 3 bad reproduction years. How's it done since 2013, did you say?
14 and 15 were really good as far as year classes go. And again, year classes is that 2013 year class or 2014 year class. And they survived really well. We collected probably overall in the reservoir over 100% more young crop than we collected the 3 previous years. So the young fish are there. And you're just going to give them time to recruit into the adult population. We should see improved catch rates this fall.
There was a public meeting held recently over near Paris Landing, not far away, and a lot of commentary, questions asked, all that. What did you feel like was going to be the result of that meeting? Do you're not a commissioner, and I won't put you in that position, but do you think there's going to be changes made, or is there a good chance there will be, and what do you think they could be? Unless that's putting you too much of a...
I don't want to give anybody any ideas. I think the commission wants to do something.
Yeah.
They've heard so many complaints from anglers. They feel like they have to make some kind of change. Now, any change they make at this point is not going to impact the population. It's not going to help anything. And as an agency, we like to make recommendations which are positive, that we're going to see an impact on the population. Reduced creel only 17% of the anglers, I think, harvested more than 20 crappie in over an 8-year period.
So it's the guys that are out there all the time that know where the crappie are, that most of the time, seriously know most of the time that they do their limits because they stay on top of the fish, right?
Yeah,
the rest of us that go on the weekends, we're not a big danger.
I've got guys that are pretty close friends. Several officers of mine are close friends, and they go up there and they're wondering what the big hullaboo is. They catch 25 or 30 crappie every time they go, and I have a good friend out of McKenzie who, he's like, I'm doing fine. I mean, I don't know what the deal is, so.
Okay, just give it time, and everything will be okay.
Yeah.
What else is on Kentucky Lake? What would you travel for to catch on Kentucky Lake? You wouldn't mind coming down from Indiana to fish for?
Bass fishing has been incredible the last 10 years. We've had so many good year classes, and that has a lot to do with the vegetation of the lake. It has something to do with recruitment, obviously.
Are y'all spraying TWRA?
Thank you, Doug. I'm glad you brought that up. TWRA does not spray nor control water levels.
Okay.
So.
All right.
No, so bass fishing is really good, and I think red ear fishing is going to be pretty good over the next couple of years.
Yeah, I love the red ear. Didn't get after them this year like I wanted to, but you told me Kentucky Lake's a good red ear place.
Red ear fishing and catfish. I remember back in the late 1980s when crappie was down and bass was not real good. Actually, catfish was the most sought species on the lake, which is very unusual. They were like over 50% of the people were actually seeking catfish when crappie and bass were less abundant. So
well, that sounds smart to me.
Catfish,
go out there and,
you want to catch something, right?
Right. Go out there and get that rod to bend over, Jason. Mm-hmm. Anyway, all right. What other lakes, Tim? I know the bass fishing's great on Kentucky Lake because they do tournaments there all the time. That's an indication of when the big tournaments come in. You have two or three other big lakes, though. You got Pickwick and Barkley. Barkley's a jewel of a lake.
It is. It's a hidden gem. A lot of people, they bypass it coming from Nashville or Clarksville and go to Kentucky. If I was them, I'd stop there at Dyer Creek and fish for crappie and bass, and anywhere from probably Dover Island north to the state line is really good fishing.
Why do you think they do that? Because it's more riverine looking, maybe, or is it?
I think it's just because Kentucky's got the reputation, and they have had historically they've had more success on Kentucky. But
is there much difference in the two lakes? I mean, they're getting relatively close together, but is there a big temperature or gradient difference in the lake?
Usually, water levels are within a tenth of a foot as far as drawdowns go. Temperatures are very close. You do have the impacts of the Cumberland steam plant.
Yeah, and it's the Cumberland River.
Right.
Right. Should say that, not the Tennessee River.
Right.
The impacts from the steam plant, are they more good or bad?
Usually no effect. We did have that when they were doing that work on Delhalla and Cumberland dams. Mm-hmm. We had impacts of hot water, really warm water that impacted water temperatures as far as north as. And you got to remember, Kentucky and Barkley both flow north. Sometimes that confuses people.
Yeah.
So
that is a little odd.
It is a little odd. It's different. But water temperatures were impacted during that time they worked on Cumberland Dam as far north as Neville Bay. So they're getting things straightened up.
Do you have, it made me think too, especially Barkley and even Pickwick to some degree, pretty good white bass populations? Those things are a lot of fun at times.
Yeah, they've been very erratic. There's kind of a boom and bust type fishery. One of the comments we received from the meeting in Paris was that the jumps on white bass are gone. They're not there anymore. And I can't explain that. We caught a lot of white bass in our gill nets when we were doing our sauger net below Pickwick Dam. And there were quite a few fish we collected, and I can't explain that. They're very erratic. Of course, the areas where they reproduce and where they spawn are very severe below dams, and you have extreme water level fluctuations at a moment's notice, and high discharge or very low discharge. So
it can affect them, but boy, I see a lot of them, and that seems to be a fish that I've heard people through the years, like Percy Priest, Center Hill would be another one, where they said they disappeared, but then they came back.
Yeah.
And they seem to do that in longer periods, to me, than crappie. I may be wrong, you're the biologist, but it just seems that way from observation.
They're just more erratic. We dropped the krill limit several years ago, and to try to smooth out that boom and bust type fishery, and I'm not sure.
Is that why? Some people say, why do you have, 20 on white bass stripe? Somewhere around there.
Yeah, 15 or 20.
It may be 15.
Yeah.
And then people say, well, why? You can go out and catch 200 of those things at one time, but is that the reason why, or to spread it out to more fishermen?
That was the basic goal, is to try to provide more fish to more anglers. I guess if it's 30, if they can only catch half that, then I think you can spread that type fishery out to more anglers. Yep.
It's nice to say you catch a limit too.
That is nice.
It's always nice. Well, what about a couple other things, and I want to spend a few minutes on Reelfoot Lake. What about the other fish? You mentioned one of them, sauger. Sauger, do you have good sauger fishing in the western portion of the state, and do you have any walleye over here?
Very few walleye. We do have some that we've collected in nets the last couple of years below Cheatham and below Pickwick Down, but sauger is just we're still trying to figure sauger out.
Mm-hmm.
We've stocked 5 years in a row now with sauger, and unfortunately the gates were open for 3 months.
5 years where?
Below Pickwick,
okay,
which is still Kentucky Reservoir. We stocked there, and from January through March, the last 3 years, there's been so much discharge. Anglers haven't been able to get in there and collect and catch fish. Mm-hmm. They catch the fish farther downstream, but the discharge rates are so high down there, it's difficult to use a jig and keep it where they want it to. The fish are there. We've collected a lot of sauger in our nets the last 2 or 3 years, and we're assuming it's their stock fish because we didn't OTC mark them or tag them or fin clip them or anything. But the fish are there. It's just they're so erratic as far as they're kind of like white bass. You have a boom bust type thing, and we're examining it. We're going to see how it does over the next 3 years without stocking, and if it doesn't do well, we may have to get rid of sauger and go with walleye because they're a much longer lift species. They're a little more consistent in their reproduction and stuff.
Oh, I love catching them up in the middle part of the state.
Yeah.
I will tell you that Pickwick, what you have in your area, to me, is probably the number one fishy place that I ever go to. I'm not saying it's better than anywhere else, but you can go down below that dam and just smell fish.
Yeah,
and exactly. It just seems like you're going to catch fish on Pickwick if you go down there and even stand on the bank.
Yep, you will. You got so many species to fish for. We have striped bass down there. We've never stocked. Well, we stocked striped bass in the late '80s.
You're talking about rockfish, striped bass,
right?
Okay. All right.
They naturally reproduce in the lake every once in a while.
I had a great day on there once a few years back.
Yeah. And we have hybrids. And you got the skipjack. A lot of people like to fish for skipjack, and that population is really good this year, but it's also erratic. You never know from year to year what kind of year class you're going to have.
We protected. Skipjack to me are one of the most important riverine fish we have, and you know that better than I do. We had a few years ago, our agency actually put a limit on skipjack.
Right.
Was that a good thing?
A good thing, because we were having people come from the north and taking back 500 to 700 skipjack at a time to sell for bait in the northern states. We felt like that fishery needed to be protected with 100 fish creel. We actually wanted 50. We got 100, and we just think it's very important in the reservoir.
I saw some of them doing that, and but I got to say it bugged me too. I saw them doing it at Cordell Hole Dam, where they're so important to the really striper, a trophy striper fishery, and that's what they were doing. They were working hard to do it, but they were taking a natural resource out of our state somewhere else, and I thought really damaging all those big brood fish that were up by the dam, and I thought it was a good move on y'all's part.
Well, I thought so too. It's something we considered for a couple of years. We finally bit the bullet and did it.
You think it's helped?
I think it's helping.
Yeah.
Still a lot. It takes a lot to catch 100 skipjack.
It does.
Yeah.
It does for sure. It does. But the guy I was watching was a young guy, and he went from morning to night.
Yeah.
He might have taken a lunch break or whatever. All right. Reelfoot Lake. We got one lake in all of Tennessee that's naturally made, a big lake, and you have it, Tim. Tell us about Reelfoot Lake.
Formed in 1811, 1812 through an earthquake. It used to be about 33,000 acres. Now it's about 10. It's been reduced through siltation and habitat problems. And when you have 100-foot topsoils in an area, you're not going to do a lot of winter cover to keep soil erosion down. They've gotten better as far as the watershed management goes. Fantastic crappie fishery, bluegill fisheries, tops in the state.
How a lake that's really only 10,000 acres, how does it keep on doing that?
It's just
did you do it to him?
It's every bit me. It's a fish factory. It's just we call Reelfoot Lake the crappie factory of Tennessee because it seems like every year they produce crappie. Now we've had a problem up there too the last 3 years with 4-year classes, but that was caused, we think, from the extremely low water levels when they built that new spillway up there, the new dam. So, but we've got 4 really good year classes in the population up there now.
The fish, I used to go as a really young guy up there, and I never got good at it. I would catch crappie, but I'd catch them all 6-8 inches. But the good fishermen up there catch big crappie, right?
Well, up to about 1987, which is when I started.
Yeah.
The average weight was average weight.
I told you did it.
The fish were about 1/4 pound. That was the average weight.
Yeah.
But after that, the silverside population was returned in good numbers.
That bait fish.
Bait fish.
Okay.
It's a pin minnow. A lot of people call it pin minnows.
That's what we call them. Yeah.
And when they started returning, their populations got better. Average weight up there is over 6 or 7/10 of a pound, I believe, right now.
Okay, that's back when I went. Back then is when I would go and we'd catch it. And we'd have a good time, but we didn't catch those big fish that we would see people catching later. It also was the first lake I ever saw that had yellow bass in it. Did they come out of the Mississippi River? First that I saw.
Probably, yeah, that's probably right. We have, of course, they're in Kentucky Lake and Barkley, and also they're kind of a nuisance to a lot of people, but I know a lot of people like to eat them too.
Oh, I got some friends that love eating those things. Specifically target them. We got one that works with us named Frank Fiss. He goes, that's what he does. He goes yellow bass fishing in the spring.
That sounds like a Frank Fiss fish.
It is. He didn't eat anything any more than that anyway. So Reelfoot's good crappie. Like, what about the bluegill? And even what about the bass?
Bass is high quality. There's not the numbers are not real high, but when you catch one, it's usually a good fish. It's really hard to fish.
There's too many places for them to hide.
Too much cover, and you really have to. I've got one of my technicians lives up there, and he's one of the best up there as far as fishing goes. And he loves to fish for bass. All he does is throw a jig, and that's all he does. No matter what time of year it is, he throws a jig and does good.
Fishes those cypress knees, I bet.
Yeah, knees, low logs. If they can find an old log, they tend to inhabit those. And bluegill. It's the average weight of bluegill has always been the top 2 or 3 in the weight in the state, and catch rates are really high. We had again because of the water level fluctuations back in 10 through 13. Populations declined a bit, but now they're back to. They had a really good year this year as far as bluegill goes.
Okay, so we're still going there, and it seems to me that when you go to that lake, they sell a specific kind of hairfly. I can't think of it right now over there, but it's like
grizzly.
A grizzly. It's grizzly.
Yeah.
It seems like you got to have. You take one of those things I use on Percy Priest Lake in Nashville. It won't work. You got to find that grizzly jig over there.
That's right. Well, I fish up there, and when I do, it's so relaxing because I'm in a small boat. I'm usually using a small trolling motor and just hit a cricket beside the cypress trees catching bluegill. To me, that's just relaxing.
It is. That's a lot of fun. Do you get to fish very much?
Not as much as I'd like. Yeah, it's just too much going on.
Can you still like fishing after holding thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them?
Yeah, I enjoy it. I don't do a lot of bass fishing. Usually it's bluegill at Reelfoot's and red here on Kentucky Lake.
I guess I need to ask you too, Tim. I don't know how much time we got left. I didn't start my phone.
We got a little while. I got about 2 minutes left.
Okay. I guess I need to ask you too about Florida largemouth. Any of them in West Tennessee?
I'm sorry?
The Florida largemouth.
Oh, yeah. We started a stocking program last year on Kentucky.
Okay.
We stocked 3 embayments, and we're going to evaluate how they contribute to the population, see if they increase sizes or anything like that. And a lot of our state lakes are stocked with Florida largemouth bass. Herb Parsons, Lake Graham, Gibson County.
Lake Graham right there.
Graham right there.
Yep.
And Browns Lake, which is, matter of fact, Browns Lake is where we caught they used to electrofish the 16-pound, 15-ounce largemouth several years ago.
You just gave away our next show. No, we are going to have Tim back. We're going to talk about just state lakes, the smaller state lakes that we have here at TWRA, and get Tim to come back on here to talk about that.
And maybe talk about hatcheries too.
And hatcheries, yeah. We're going to, in the next time we're going to talk about Humboldt Hatchery a little bit. I don't know. I think I've been there once, so I'd like to hear what you've got to say about that. But Florida largemouth bass, too early to say how good they're doing.
Right.
But
it's going to be a 10-year project.
Okay. All right. Well, Tim, I really enjoyed you being here.
Thank you.
I think you did. You always done a great job. You've always been cordial to us anytime we wanted to get information, and we appreciate that a lot.
That's all you, Doug.
It's all Jason. It's all Jason. All right, Jason.
Hey, you can find us on tmwildlife.org. The past shows are there, and all the future shows will be there, and you can see everything right there. Listen to it.
And I want to remind you, watch our Facebook page a lot too. We got great stuff out on the Facebook, and we put videos out there all the time. A lot of information. It's easy to find. Okay, just all the information you want about our agency. We'll hear that stuff, but we don't know what y'all are doing. We'll see you next week.
See y'all later.